Forest of Evil. Pete, his best buddy Chad, and Chad's younger cousin Baz, who was 17, were on a flight in Pete's helicopter when the helicopter had engine failure and went down in the very lake that they were going to fish in. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt, and the three of them grabbed what supplies they could and splashed ashore. But unfortunately, the cell phone Pete had was lost, and it was the only communication that they had. The wind was like ice, so they quickly lit a fire and rigged up Chad's tent. "It looks like we may have to walk out of here," said Baz. "I don't think any help is coming." "Why do you think that?" Pete asked. Baz shrugged. "I don't know, it's just a strong hunch I have." They threw more wood onto the fire and listened to the sounds of the night. From somewhere wolves howled mournfully. The next day they kept the fire going, hoping a plane or helicopter would come over and see the smoke, but to no avail. On the third day they decided to leave. By now they were getting very low on food. They even tried fishing in a nearby stream, but the fish were very far and few between. They followed the stream downhill, but as they went along, Baz appeared very jumpy and nervous. He kept looking behind him all the time. "Hey, what's wrong, buddy?" Chad asked. "I just have this really strange feeling that we're being followed by something and it doesn't like us." "Oh, maybe I'm crazy," he tried to laugh. "Yes, you've always been a little crazy," Chad bantered with him. But Pete could tell too that Chad was looking quite uneasy as well. After many hours of hiking, they came to a suitable place and set up camp. By now it was getting dark. They sat by the fire, throwing wood onto it. Baz kept turning and looking into the darkness of the forest. "You expecting someone?" Chad asked. "Look, something just isn't right, guys," Baz spoke in a low voice. "It's just the wolves. Don't worry, the fire will keep them away," said Chad. "No, it's not the wolves," said Baz. "I wish it was. There's something out there that can't be easily explained. I know people think I'm weird, but I can just sense these things." "Yeah," said Pete. "You know, I can feel it too. There's something pretty sinister out there. When I was down by the stream before, I just felt these eyes boring into me, and I know it wasn't just the animals." The three of them didn't speak much after that. They just sat by the fire and listened to the sounds of the night. The next day they trekked on until they came to a small log cabin. "Hey, this is great. It's got a solid door and there's a padlock on it," Pete shouted. They collected firewood and got ready for the long, cold night. The following day, when Chad and Baz were fishing in a nearby stream and Pete was collecting firewood, he heard the most horrific sound of snarling and screaming. He saw Chad getting mauled by a grizzly and Baz was hurling rocks at it. Pete grabbed the pepper spray and raced over. With a combination of rocks and the spray hitting it, it was too much for the bear, and it took off back to the forest. But Chad was bleeding badly from a wound in his leg and about to go into shock. They carried Chad inside, and Pete put a pressure bandage on to stop the bleeding. "I'm sorry, guys," Chad groaned. "It's so stupid of me. I should have taken that spray." "Here, buddy, drink this." Pete handed him a drink of tea. That evening, when Chad was sleeping by the fire, they heard the scratching sound at the door. "That damn bear is back," said Pete, looking out the window. "Good thing we're in here, eh?" Then something else caught Pete's attention. A tall, humanoid figure walked out of the forest. It looked about 8 feet in height. But what really got to Pete was the creature's eyes. They glowed red. "What the hell is that?" Baz asked, standing beside Pete. "I don't know, but I sure don't like the look of it," said Pete. Just then it was joined by 5 others just like it. They all had the same glowing red eyes. Their eyes looked very predatory as they walked slowly but surely towards the cabin. Pete yanked the curtain across and Baz bolted the door. No one slept much that night, and the following day Pete found Baz packing up his gear. "I'm going to walk out of here," he said, "and get help. You stay here with Chad." "No way," said Pete. "It's too dangerous to go on your own. We need to stay together." "We don't have any choice," Baz argued. "Chad has a fever and I think his bite is infected. He's lost so much blood anyway, he's too weak to walk out of here." Pete knew that Baz was right. So saying goodbye, Baz walked off, following the stream downhill. At one point he saw another bear in the distance, but he made enough noise to scare the bear away. Exhausted after several hours of hiking, Baz found a suitable place and set up camp. He was collecting wood when an icy sense of dread came over him. Looking up from the bushes, he saw 2 of those same creatures with the glowing red eyes. Ducking down amongst the foliage he was in, Baz watched with a pounding heart as they walked to his tent. One of them effortlessly just ripped his tent to shreds with what seemed very long claws. Then it tilted its head back, revealing teeth that looked like many long needles. It let out a cry, a strange sound which was a cross between a howl and a cackle. Just then, 4 other creatures appeared from the opposite direction. They stood in a circle and seemed to communicate for what seemed an eternity. And then they walked slowly past Baz and back to the forest. Just as they reached the trees, one of them turned and looked straight at where Baz was hiding. Its eyes bored right into Baz from where he hid. "I can see you, human." Its thoughts reached Baz. Baz recoiled in terror. "You're just lucky we aren't hungry." Baz was sent a mental image of himself lying there covered in blood and being disemboweled while they feasted off him. "Oh God, please get us out of here," he prayed. For the rest of the night, Baz stayed hiding in the bushes, too terrified to move. The next day he grabbed what he could and took off, putting as much distance between himself and that area as possible. Hours later he came to a wide track which led down to a road. Feeling relief, he walked along the road until a patrol car came and picked him up. That evening, Pete and Chad were in their cabin when they heard a helicopter straight overhead. Pete rushed outside and saw Baz and the pilot waving to him. "What a relief," said Pete as they helped Chad on board. "The lock on the door broke today, and every time I went outside I could feel these eyes on me. Damn, it was creepy," he said. Just as the helicopter became airborne, both Baz and Pete noticed that they were back. They were only a few feet from the cabin. They watched them leave with an expression of hunger and hatred in their red glowing eyes. And then they were gone. The darkening forest had swallowed them up.